Florida State football fans, see, college football is more fun when you win the games.
Oh, that's what you're supposed to do. Got it. Okay.
Win the games, and actually the season's more enjoyable that way. Man, and when you win them like this one, 35-31, ACC opener on the road against Louisville. Yes, our guy Jason Parker's here from NBC6 to help us break it down. Jason.
I've come to the conclusion that rooting for my alma mater is going to kill me. I'm not going to make it to 40. I just turned 39. At more games like the LSU game and the Louisville game, I'm not going to make it to 40 at this rate. The only thing I could say is a phrase that I can't say because the FCC will violates all their guidelines. But I will just say the one word I would say for that second half performance is gutsy. The way they played in the second half after losing Jordan Travis, after losing Jared Verse, Tate Rodemaker, we'll talk about him over the next 20 minutes or so. Just, I would say gutsy would be the best way to describe that second half performance by Florida State.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Jordan Travis gets knocked out on the play that he would have thrown the interception, but the knee was down. But more importantly, he gets knocked from the game. Tate Rodemaker comes in. Yeah, there were some shaky moments. The one interception in the red zone was ugly on the underthrow, but I think they called a little bit different of a game, did some things that he's capable of doing. He actually broke contain, picked up a huge 30-yard run to pick up a first down. For a guy that's had limited reps, and especially limited reps in meaningful snaps against a quality opponent, that was pretty impressive.
And let's start with the beginning. Obviously, Jordan Travis, he started off the game 11 for 11, 148 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter alone. So, I mean, he was having the best first quarter of his career with the Florida State Seminoles. And then the second quarter, he goes 2 for 6 in the second quarter for 9 yards before getting hurt. You see him come out in the second half. I didn't go to medical school, but it doesn't look like a knee injury. It looks more like an ankle injury. I hope that he's not out for long, but he could be out for a couple of games. We'll know more as the days go on there. Tate Rodemaker was somebody who has been much maligned by me, by Logan, by others as saying he can't get the job done because, as evident in 2020 when he played against Jacksonville State, he threw a pick 6 right away. He throws a pick against Duquesne that leads to their 1 touchdown when given their chances. So it's one of those things where you don't really have that trust in him at that time. Then he comes out, yes, that in the second quarter, beginning of the third quarter, he was very, very, he looked shaky, but then it almost looked like you don't have him win the game with the big plays. Let the receivers make the big plays. Let Johnny Wilson. Johnny Wilson ends up 7 receptions for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. Let the running backs. We talked about this on Wednesday, that the running backs needed to step up. Trayshawn Ward, 126 yards on 10 carries. Trey Benson, 70 yards on 10 carries. The running game finally stepped up there in the second half. And you kind of saw the point there where, at Louisville, let's give Louisville credit. Malik Cunningham was great for Louisville. 243 yards passing, 127 yards rushing. So Malik Cunningham is a very good quarterback for Louisville. But it almost looked like Louisville sort of got to the point of, okay, Malik's going to take care of it. And Tate came in there and said, all right, I'm gonna throw simple passes to Johnny Wilson. I'm gonna let Ward. I'm gonna let Benson run the ball. I can't do it all myself. So I think that's something you saw, and I will give credit to Mike Norvell. He's got players right now on this roster who believe in the team at this rate. I think that's something you don't see what happened tonight in the 2021 season, the 2020 season. And it goes back not just during the Norvell era. You saw it during the Taggart era. You saw it during the end of the Fisher era, where they you play down to the level of your competition and you don't fight back. Tonight was the first time, I would probably argue, since 2014, I'd probably even say the 2015 game against Miami, were the first time you saw a team fight when they were faced with adversity.
Yeah, Jason Parker here, NBC6. You can hear from Jason every Wednesday. How about that? 6 o'clock Eastern time on our Florida State show that we bring you on our Florida State channel each and every Wednesday. And it's getting exciting, folks. So you may want to join us this Wednesday. That's 3-0 and 1-0 in the ACC. Kevin Knowles caps off the big win with a tremendous interception on the sideline.
Shout out to Broward County. Kevin Knowles from Hollywood, Florida, from right down the street from here. His school got placed on lockdown today, so I think he was playing inspired for that reason.
Yeah, just an exceptional play
phenomenal
by
job.
him. My goodness,
and let's also we're talking about the positive at the moment. Let's also look a little bit at the negative. I mean, Florida State's defense gave up 495 yards in the game. Let's just be honest about it. So that's an area of concern for me, is that you look at what they did against Duquesne, you look at what they did against LSU, then you're allowing almost 500 yards, and it's not all Malik Cunningham. It's, George Jordan, their running back, gets 91 yards. I'm just looking at their stats right now. Amari Huggins-Bruce, 61 yards receiving. Braden Smith, 50 yards receiving. So they had contributions in this game from other people. So that's my area of concern right now for Florida State, is the defense. And yes, there were injuries. I mean, that's another area of concern, is you're coming off a bye week and you lose different guys to injury. That's a concern I have heading into the Boston College game.
Yeah, they came into the game with no Fabian Lovett. So one of their staunch run enforcers in the middle, gone. And then, of course, Jordan Travis, we'll have to see what the diagnosis is on him. Tatum Bethune was lost during the game. Jared Verse, you mentioned, lost somewhere maybe in the second quarter, something in that range. Yeah, a lot of offensive linemen was lost during the game as well. Number 52. Did not take note of that, but he was lost during the game as well. So, yeah, a lot of injuries there. But the big glaring issue in this game, and credit Malik Cunningham, but they could just not tackle the guy. He got outside to contain in the open field consistently, and they couldn't tackle him, whether that was in the open field or even in small spaces. They just had issues wrapping him up. Oh, we lost you.
Sorry, I apologize. Defense was optional for both teams in this ball game. You look at that, Florida State giving up 495 yards of offense, and Louisville, just doing my quick math here on this one, giving up 455 yards of total offense in this game. So it's one of those things where, 495 and 455. So you're talking about a combined 950 yards of offense in this ball game. I mean, it's an area of concern for me if I'm looking into the future. I'm looking at the fact that I think that this is a Florida State team that can beat Boston College. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but this is a team right now that on paper should be the favorite next week. I think they should be ranked heading into that Boston College game. I think they beat Boston College, but the question is, and especially if you're sticking with Rodemaker for an extended period of time, how much longer can this last? You've got a streak of games in October of Wake Forest, NC State, Clemson, Georgia Tech. The thought was, with Jordan Travis in there, hey, you could probably split those and at least go into the month of November 6-2. At this rate, that's where these questions are going to come in. But for right now, let's focus on the fact that Florida State, for the first time since 2015, is 3-0. This is a Florida State, I will admit, I predicted before the season that we'd lose to Louisville in this game. And for a while there, I hated to sound like I was going to be right, but it looked like that way. But I'll stick with the word I said at the beginning, gutsy. This was the gutsiest Florida State performance I've seen in years.
And so one of the more important aspects of this victory is that Florida State was, depending on your sports book, a 2.5 or 3 point favorite. And all three of us, between Logan, Jason, and myself, all took Florida State not only to win, but to cover. And they did, barely. So that's good news for our prediction record for the week to start us out.
For fun, talking about Johnny Wilson. I mean, this is a guy who, you look at the Duquesne game, he had a couple drops. LSU game, he had a couple good plays in the LSU game, but for the most part, he kind of, took a backseat to Ontario Wilson in that game. But I mean, you're talking about the fact that seven catches, 149 yards, big 69-yard reception, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's what you want to see. And a lot of that came with Tate Rodemaker at quarterback. So that's going to be the question, is he now going to be Tate's guy? I mean, you looked at, for the first 2 games, Ontario Wilson was kind of Jordan's guy. And we've talked about this in the past. With quarterbacks, they all have their certain go-to receivers. So is Johnny Wilson big 6'7" target. Is he going to be Tate Rodemaker's number one target from this point on?
Jason, you know as well as anyone that's been a position of need, probably next to your beloved offensive line for Florida State.
Obviously.
That has been the position of need where it has not looked like a Florida State wide receiver room for what, 5 years
Yeah.
collectively. And this is not a vintage Florida State yet. We're not going to sell it as that at the wide receiver position, but these guys are making plays that we haven't seen made by this unit for quite a while.
I'm the best thing I can say about this performance is, and you talked about it, like I said before the game, when we talked about it Wednesday, we said what were the key area of concern I had, and I said I need the running game to show up, and we talked about it a little bit already. Ward and Benson combining for 196 yards. That's what I needed to see. I like the fact that Johnny Wilson was the star receiver, because you look at it, I mean, the number 2 receiver in terms of yards was Cam McDonald with 45. Ontario Wilson only had 38. So it was good to see a few guys finally get to that point. Um, I don't want to put the cart before the horse on this one. I know I use that expression a lot in the last couple of shows, but at the same point, I guess I just have to feel like if Florida State is finally going to win these games, if this is a game where you would not have, and you look at Twitter, you look at social media, when Florida State went down 28-21, it's like, oh, this is over. When Tate Rodemaker came in the game, it's all right, well, this one's over. And Florida State is going to leave the Commonwealth of Kentucky with a 3-0 record at a 35-31 victory against all the obstacles that were placed before them, against all the injury obstacles. You almost have to say sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And so the question comes now, all of a sudden you got a Boston College team coming in that at best is going to be 1-2, at worst would be 0-3 if they lose tomorrow to Maine. If they lose tomorrow to Maine, I think that would be an embarrassment. It'd almost be like, oh, I don't know, losing to Jacksonville State. But that's where we're going to come in. And if you're 4-0 heading into Wake Forest, if you're 4-0 heading into what's going to be the juggernaut month on the schedule as a whole, then all of a sudden Wake Forest may not look as scary. Georgia Tech may become guaranteed. And if you have that stretch there where you got Georgia Tech at the end of the month, and if you're 1-3, or excuse me, 1-2 out of those first 3 games, where you can, let's say you pull out one against Wake Forest and you lose to NC State or Clemson, all of a sudden you're 6-2 heading into the month of November. All of a sudden there's a lot more things that can become realistic. All of a sudden 8 wins is a realistic season.
Jason, you nailed it right out of the gate about the most impressive portion of this victory, because it wasn't perfect. It wasn't sterling, a zillion missed tackles, blown coverages, rush defense, even outside of Malik Cunningham. Consider their 2 top running backs were out for this game, and their 2 backups still went for 91 and 34 yards. So the not a sterling performance, but you lose your leader, the guy that's been the offense for a year and a half, and you lose your, if not your best defensive player, your most talented defensive player. You lose an offensive lineman at one point. You rack up these injuries throughout, and they find a way to win with a quarterback who's proven nothing up to this game, and you're playing in prime time on the road, and they just find a way to win. And sometimes, as you well know, Jason, some teams, if you can get better and better and improve and address those issues throughout the season, but win while you're doing it rather than lose while you're doing it, you build confidence. And this is a team that's obviously, based on the 2 performances this year against quality competition, is a much more confident team than it was last year or the year before or the year before.
Oh, absolutely. And you're saying, when you talk about the 2 wins against quality opponents, LSU and Louisville, both of them were on the road. That's the thing that gets me right now, is that our 2 toughest games, our two most hard fought games, were both on the road. And we've talked about this. You win, let's say we have our 7 home games this year. Let's say we lose to Clemson, lose to Wake. So you win 5 home games. You go 5-2 at home. All right, well, you've already got 2 road wins. So there's 7 wins right there. So you're already bowl eligible. So that's where things come into play. So it's like, as I said earlier, Florida State loses this game the last 5 seasons. From the 2017 season through the 2021 season, Florida State loses that game. We've all watched it happen. We've all seen those games happen where Florida State's either had the lead and lost it, or fallen behind by a touchdown, and just, all right, we're done here, just after one score. So.
Absolutely. And it was asked a couple times there in the chat. Yes, I will be taking calls a little bit later, but we wanted to get Jason on here first and foremost and get his take on the game. Jason, so gracious to join us tonight to give his take.
The people here at NBC6 loved me tonight. Let me just say that. The amount of Canes fans and graduates in the room loved the boisterous way I was cheering for the Seminoles tonight. They were very supportive as well.
Do you know who I love, Jason?
I love Kyle Pickett.
Kyle Pickett.
Absolutely. Kyle Pickett's an American hero, if you will.
Thank you for the generosity, Kyle. This is for Jason's red velvet cupcakes and for a big go Noles.
I mean, at this rate, I'd like a red velvet cupcake, but I mean, I did eat my feelings tonight. By the way, shout out to, I really have to say this real quick, shout out to the person who stole my Chipotle. I ordered Chipotle to pick it up on the way in.
Yeah.
True story, because I had Chipotle before the Duquesne game. Well, the quesadilla. There's a quesadilla hack I will talk about Wednesday. I'll talk about this a little bit more on Wednesday. I get there. Somebody stole it. Somebody stole my order from the already paid for area, so they made me a new one. It's fine. But it's just more the fact that who would steal Chipotle? This is my question. Who would steal a quesadilla?
You know, you're one of the few people that actually pronounce the name of the restaurant correctly. There's a lot of variations to Chipotle. I hear it pronounced so many different ways.
Well, I mean, I speak English.
Is the correct way to say it.
I mean, yeah.
Yes.
I can't believe we're 3-0. It's one of those things where I will admit, and I will admit, I was one of those who gave up on the team tonight. When it was 28-21, I thought, okay, this is over. But to see what happened tonight really does give me confidence that this team could change, that this team may have changed. I'm not going to fully say we've turned the corner just yet, but we're getting close. We're getting close to that corner. And I think if we can beat Boston College, Kyle Pickett's right. We're 3-0. That's the thing. Was it an ugly win? Yes. Was it a win? Take the win. At this rate, you can't get picky with your wins. But I'm sensing, and once again, don't want to say anything, but with Boston College next week, the fact that we could be hosting Wake Forest and starting that juggernaut schedule 4-0 instead of what people said before the season. Oh, Florida State will be 2-2 at this point, maybe even 1-3. And you're 4-0 at that rate, that changes a lot of things.
Maybe you'll warm up to these new uniforms a little bit more since they come with a big W with them. So
burn them.
Love the new FSU uniforms that look like the U.
Throw them off the plane. Well, the U better watch out tomorrow. I think the U, one of two things is going to happen tomorrow. Either the U is going to end Texas A&M's season real quick, or Texas A&M is going to come in there angry. So, for Falcon ERX's sake, I know he wants Miami to win. I'm not 100% sure about that one, but that one's going to be interesting. But no, throw those uniforms off the plane. Throw the helmets off. Uniforms I like, throw the helmets off the plane. But once again, win is a win. Next week, we'll wear gold helmets.
My preseason prediction of Florida State going 6-6 is already going down in flames. So, and I'm good with that. That's fine. I can be wrong. This is going to be exciting for our show, for our channel, if they can continue this. And again, next week is Boston College at home, correct?
Boston College at home, and Boston College is coming off. They've got the loss to Rutgers in week 1, loss to Virginia Tech in week 2, and they host Maine this week. So,
well, they're going to get healthy, but still, they were forecasted to be somewhat of a outside dark horse factor in the ACC Atlantic.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the way you got to look at it right now. Just as I pull up here on my work computer, the ACC standings at the moment, 2 weeks into the season, if you count at this point. But right now, obviously, Florida State's first place. Let's hold on to that for a moment. First place in the Atlantic Division. But you have a Syracuse team that's 2-0. Right now, 5 teams are undefeated. Boston College is 0-2. Louisville is 1-2. So, Syracuse may be a little tougher game. Logan talked about a little bit about that on Wednesday. Syracuse may be a tougher opponent than we thought they'd be, but that'll be later on the season. But I think the biggest thing is to get those 6 wins as much as possible, because you have to get back to bowl eligibility. We have not been bowl eligible 3 of the last 4 seasons, so it's about getting back to bowl eligibility. If you can end October bowl eligible, that takes a lot of stress off that Miami game, off that Florida game, off that Syracuse game.
So, Jason, we both went down our checklist of positives and our negative takeaways from this game, but we both missed one in particular. Mr. Ryan Fitzgerald, as is being mentioned by Timothy here, 2 missed field goals, very makeable kicks. And the last one, you're in a situation where you almost were able to just run the clock out. The running game was working like precision to just run the clock out. You stall in the red zone. You've got an easy field goal. It's dead on. He misses. And, you're in a situation where you don't salt the game away, but you make them score a touchdown. If you make the kick to tie the game, the kick's got to be made.
When you're throwing the helmets off the plane, if you want to leave Fitzgerald's seat open and just leave him in Louisville, that would be fine. And I think the thing with him is that this is not a new thing. This is not something, because we dealt with this last season with Fitzgerald. We dealt with this earlier in the season. So when there's a situation when he missed the first field goal wide right, you're thinking, yeah, okay. And then the next time you're thinking, all right, maybe he learned it, and he missed it again. But you have to look at it this way. What's Florida State's other options? You have 2 other kickers. Aiden Sharari, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, from Clearwater, and Max Larson, who's from down here from St. Thomas Aquinas, who I actually saw in high school, was a good kicker in high school, but, it's also 5'10", 185. So he's a lot shorter and a lot skinnier than what you're getting from Fitzgerald. So who knows about his power? But I mean, Fitzgerald right now he's the only kicker that we really have, but I think that's something that we should get involved in the recruiting process as soon as humanly possible. Yes, if we could recruit some people from our national championship soccer team, that would be phenomenal.
There you go. Fitzgerald is 3 for 6 now this season. You don't need a field goal kicker that's hitting 50% of his kicks.
Wow, he made 3 kicks this season. Isn't that impressive?
And when you're watching a really good, when you're watching NFL games and almost every kicker's just, 85% certainty, and how clean the kicks are. His kicks are never clean kicks. They're always hulking, wobbly. It's rough to watch.
Oh, I know, but once again, I must also say that I have not watched a Florida State kick in over 30 years. So I cannot totally say how his kicks have gone, if we're just going to be honest. Even our good kicks, even in our good years, I still have not watched a kick in 30 plus seasons. That first wide right in 1991 ruined it for me.
Yeah, so, you do have quite the history of kicks.
We do.
That who knows what Florida State's legacy could be right now, even greater with about 3 more made kicks.
But more importantly, Florida State's 3-0. The viewers are going to hit the like button. Logan's going to come back on Wednesday. He maybe still be drunk from tonight. Who knows? But we will all, Seminole Nation will sleep well tonight, knowing that there is a chance, if Texas A&M does their job tomorrow, that Florida State could be the only undefeated FBS team in the state of Florida. The way it should be.
There you go. Jason, we'll keep you for as long as we can get you, but thank you so much. We've come to a good resting place if you need to get back to work.
I am, so I will see you on Wednesday.
Thank you, Jason. We appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it.
Congrats tonight. See you later. 35-31. That was a heck of a game. It was fun, and it was not pretty, but it was exciting, and it gets our college football weekend off to a great start. I'm going to leave the link to the show here in the chat, and you can jump on board. Of course, Florida State is the story tonight. on a Friday night. But of course, we're going to preview week 3 of college football and run through all the major games. And you can lead us. You produce the show. That's the way it works here at the Voice of College Football. But keep in mind, we've got an Amazon link in the description section of every video. Every video, Amazon link, capitals, letters, Amazon. Grab the link, put it somewhere where you will remember it. And we ask that you would use that link because it doesn't change your shopping experience at all. Doesn't cost you a penny. It's the same exact shopping experience, but instead of sending Amazon the full amount to your purchase, a couple percentage points come to the way of the Voice of College Football. So we would appreciate that. The Amazon link. And can you imagine if everyone here used the Amazon link, we would build the Voice of College Football into an empire. Just be phenomenal. All right. So Florida State wins. And for you bettors, cover the 2.5 to 3 points at Louisville. We're going to focus on week 3, unless you guys want to focus on Florida State. Leaving the link in the live chat. Here we go. First, we got Mr. Pickett back. Kyle says a win. A win is a win. No matter what the score says. Go Noles. 3-0 for the first time since 2015, 16. 16 was the last really good season. 10-3, beat Michigan in the Orange Bowl, finished in the top 10. 2015, 10-3, lost to Houston in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. That Ed Oliver crew. And then, of course, 2014 was a playoff year. In 2013, you know the way that ended. So this is territory Florida State has not seen for quite some time. Please join the show. There's the link. And we will dive into week 3. Here we go. Also tonight, we've got a game between Air Force and Wyoming. I believe that's a final as well. They kicked off about a half hour after Florida State, Louisville. Air Force is upset by Wyoming. This surprises me here. So consider that Air Force was, by many people's estimations, that group of 5 team to watch this year. And they lose to a Wyoming team that lost to Illinois by 32 points in week 0. Air Force falls on the road 17-14. So Air Force beat Colorado, which is no great feat, by 31 last week. First caller of the night, we got Porter on the line. Porter, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Mark.
What's going on?
Hey. I meant to call her earlier in the week. By the way, congrats to FSU. I mean, I didn't watch the game, but mainly because I feel like, Friday night should be for high school football, but congrats to those guys. I mean, I think, I grew up in the 70s when Bobby Bowden was first getting that program going. And I think you and I had this conversation before about, when they first had success in the late 70s, they had a quarterback named, I think Jimmy Jordan was the quarterback, and he was on that cover of that SI where you had I think eight other programs, who was number 1, and got to meet him one time. That was kind of cool. But anyway, just a tremendous level of consistency from, I guess it was 87 until early 2000s of finishing in the top 5. So it's good for college football to see blue blood like FSU playing good football. And so congrats to those guys.
Absolutely. It was an exciting game you missed, but Florida State had a number of injuries that we'll have to wait and see how meaningful those are. Jordan Travis had to leave the game. They won the game with their backup quarterback playing from the second quarter on. Tate Rodemaker, who has proven nothing against anybody and only played mop-up duty, had to shoulder the load, and they did a nice job of supporting him with a run game, giving him passes he could complete. He threw a bad pick. He threw some shaky passes early, but then he got his footing and they win the game. They could not contain Malik Cunningham. He was running wild and breaking contain and dodging guys in the open field all night, but they got past that. So the defense gave up roughly 500 yards of total offense and had some issues, but they made enough stops. They only gave up the 31, which in today's football is not horrible. So yeah, a road win in conference is always a good thing.
Yeah, good for them. Well, where's the Clemson FSU game this year?
They play in Tallahassee.
Oh, okay. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, could be.
Good. Well, hey, wanted to ask you something. I wanted to call earlier in the week, but I mean, your channel is just blown up so much, Mark. I mean, it's hard to get on like I used to. So, congrats to you on that. With the quarterback, I'm sorry, with the head coach at Notre Dame having such a tough time being 0-3. Remind me his name. Marcus.
Which coach being Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. Yeah.
With the Notre Dame coach being 0-3 right now. If you were to say the line of demarcation would be Jerry Faust.
Yeah.
Till now, who would you say Marcus Freeman may be the worst Notre Dame coach since Jerry Faust, or would you say maybe the crew cut guy that was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma maybe worse, or the Stanford coach? Where would you rank the worst coaches since Jerry Faust?
The crew cut guy, Charlie Weiss?
Yeah.
Charlie Weiss had some pretty good seasons at Notre Dame.
And then the defensive coordinator from Texas A&M, I'm trying to remember his name.
Bob Davie?
Yeah, Davie. So what would you rank as your worst Notre Dame coaches since Jerry Faust?
Since Faust, there haven't been that many coaches, so it's not going to be a long list at all. But the decision has to be between Weiss and Willingham. Those are your two guys.
Not the guy.
I'm sorry. Between Davie and Willingham.
Not the guy that's currently in the coaching.
He coached a bowl game after the coach got fired. So that game's on his record, but he was concluding a season with a bowl game that wasn't his team at the time. So yeah, the game's on his record, but he's 0-2 right now. And so he's 0-3. His career record is 0-3 at Notre Dame, and he's coached against two of the top 5 teams in the country. So he's not even close to having a grade from me. I'll give him some kind of an evaluation at the end of the season. I'm all for that. But unless they're just a complete disaster, he's got another 2 seasons after this season before I say too much about him. But anyway, so I'm not going to make an evaluation on Marcus Freeman at all. They played a really good game against Ohio State. What happened last week, I don't know. I didn't see one play of the game, but it was obviously a horrible performance. You cannot lose to Marshall at home or anywhere on the planet if you're at Notre Dame. But let's understand, all the coaches we just mentioned had some embarrassing losses, including Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. Tulsa, Connecticut, Syracuse, Navy have all beaten Notre Dame in the last 15 years. So, yeah, I'd have to really dive into Willingham and Davie, but I would tend to say that Ty Willingham was the worst because he took over Bob Davies' program while Bob Davie took over Luke Holtz's program. So he was set up for success much better than Ty Willingham.
So would you say, well, let me ask you this. What do you think Weiss's best win at Notre Dame was? Because to me, I would say his best win at Notre Dame was a close loss to Southern Cal.
Well, sure. So that was the first thing that came to mind, was that was the best game that they played, was the Bush Push game, but they didn't win the game. So, but that was their best performance. I'm sure we could go through games and see that they beat some decent opponents, but they didn't win. They didn't win a postseason game of note, and USC beat them every year. I'm sure that he was there because that was Pete Carroll, and they weren't losing to Notre Dame during that time. So I would have to go back, and I'm sure my memory would be jogged by. I know that they got blasted by Michigan quite a bit during the mid 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm asking the question is, I grew up. I think I've had this conversation. I mean, my parents are from Indiana, Central Indiana, and I kind of grew up liking the teams from Indiana, even though I ended up going to college in Athens. So the Jerry Faust years were really tough for me in the 80s, being a Notre Dame fan in the 80s. So I always kind of look at Jerry Faust as absolutely the worst coach in Notre Dame history, at least in my lifetime. I was born in 1970.
Sure. He is.
So you see a coach like Marcus Freeman go 0-3. I don't think Jerry Faust even went 0-3 in his first 3 games. Is that right?
I don't think so. He went, I think his record was, I might be off by a game or two, like 30-26 in his coaching tenure at Notre Dame. He went 5-6, then he went 7-5, and those were his records. Basically, He was right in that. I don't know that he might have had an 8-3. No, he might have had maybe a 7-4 season. I don't even think he went 8-3 when he was there. He had a couple 5-6 years, which was unthinkable at the time. They were just playing for the national champion, or they were a national championship contender in 1980 in Dan Devine's last season, and boom, he turns it over to Jerry Faust, and they're going 5-6 the next year. Yeah, he was way in over his head. They're hiring a high school coach to coach at Notre Dame. It's just dumb, unthinkable. There were so many other candidates to go to.
Yeah, I was so young at the time, but I'm trying to remember. Looking back on this, I cannot believe they hired a high school coach to lead Notre Dame. That's just how outlandish that was. But hey, what did you changing gears? What did you think about the whole? I didn't see I didn't see you come out with any kind of podcast or anything like that on the announcement from the SEC this week about telling Georgia and Tennessee to find replacements for their games with OU and Texas. What was your assessment of that?
I thought of producing something on that, and I didn't even look into it because I figured by the looks of the headline that's just a response to those schools joining the SEC. So they don't need to have out-of-conference games scheduled against them.
But do you think that ESPN will step in and do something to expedite the Texas and OU joining the SEC earlier than 2025?
I would think that all the parties involved would want to expedite that. Nobody wants to be in a lame duck conference or have lame duck status in a conference that you're leaving. The SEC wants to move forward and move on with whatever plans they have in place for their divisions, their pods, and all that. Nobody wants to be kind of languishing in this in-between phase. Maybe not even the Big 12, except for just having the money intake and the brand and the possibilities of having teams go to the playoffs and major bowl games in Texas and Oklahoma. But I even think that there's a portion of the Big 12 that wants to move on from, they've been gilded, move on, get out of here.
I know what you're saying. And I know the Big 12 it's almost like an ex-girlfriend or ex-wife that just, constantly, wants you to, I'm not letting you out of this, agreement with the mortgage or whatever. I mean, it's if you see the way BYU is playing football, if you see the way, I know Central Florida and Cincinnati have losses, but they've played tough. If you're the Big 12, I mean, just swallow your pride and just get if there's any way you can expedite getting BYU and Cincinnati and Central Florida, go ahead and get them in your conference and move on. That would just make sense to me. I mean, I know they have their feelings hurt with what OU and Texas has what they've done, but I mean, you've got some really good replacements coming in, especially what BYU is doing now. That, it's one of those things. Just move on. And as an SEC guy, I'm excited about having OU and Texas in, mainly because of the expansion of the playoff. Now, if you're telling me that OU and Texas is coming in and we have the same 14 playoff, then I may not be as enthused because it's going to make the SEC even tougher. But if you can somehow adopt this new 12-team playoff earlier and have this reconfiguration of the conferences, then I would love to see it. And it would be great if people could kind of put their egos aside and just let this happen. Let Southern Cal go ahead and go to the Big Ten and UCLA.
Well, that's set. That's done. They know exactly what they're doing there. I don't expect that to change because they haven't been. Oh, maybe it will. Maybe it will. I shouldn't say that I don't expect it to change. It wouldn't completely blindside me, surprise me if that changed. But there are two things that I want to result from this change in conferences and realignment and all this business. Two things when it pertains to the Big 12, the SEC, and what's going on there. I want it to be an uneven swap. I don't want the transition to be smooth. I do not want Texas and Oklahoma to leave for the SEC at the same time that the four schools from the American Conference come in. I want something to get messed up there. I want all of them in the Big 12 for at least one season. I want to see, because we don't get enough. There are so many matchups across America that we could name that we would have to say, oh, well, we haven't seen that matchup in 20 years or 30 years or ever. We've never seen Michigan and LSU on the same field, for example. That's ridiculous. They've played for over 100 years. So I want BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF to be in a conference in the Big 12 with Texas and Oklahoma and to be playing games against them, because that will be our only opportunity for those schools to be playing. And we should see Houston play Texas and UCF, Oklahoma. It would just be interesting to see them have to mishmash for 1 year and then transition after that. But I personally would be interested in seeing those teams play, number one. Number two, the amusement and also the bragging rights of, regardless of how it plays out, if Oklahoma and Texas go to Big 12 championship games and win conference titles before they leave and can say, see ya, we just won the last two conference championship games and we played each other, or the Big 12 shut those two out after it was announced that they were leaving. So they've made it through one season and had Baylor and Oklahoma State shut out Texas and Oklahoma. And I would be kind of amused if for the final two seasons of Texas, Oklahoma in the Big 12, that they were shut out of the conference championship game. And the Big 12 would kind of have a last laugh of, see you couldn't make our conference championship game. And then on the flip side, Oklahoma, Texas enter the SEC, and the amusement of whether the SEC can kind of the old guard of the SEC can puff up its chest and say, you came in and went 7-5, so you're really not that good. You're going to have to raise your level to the SEC, or Texas and Oklahoma come into the SEC and have greater than expected success in the SEC, and we could be like, you know what? Maybe the SEC is not quite as tough as we thought it was. That's just, I find that interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's happened before.
Sure.
2012 was the first year, and A&M went, I want to say 10-2.
Yeah.
And beat Bama and had a Heisman Trophy winner their first year. So,
sure.
So it's not unheard of. And I think the SEC. The thing about the SEC is once you're in the SEC, I don't see us being very. I don't see us treating you as an outsider for a certain number of years. I think once you're in, you're in. And I don't think, whether it's the officials or whatever. I don't see the. If you're good enough to win, we're going to let you win. And whereas one of the scenarios you talked about, I don't see the Big 12 officials allowing Texas or Oklahoma to win the conference. I'll be honest with you. I think when you see whether it's the I forget what's the name of the rivalry game with Oklahoma State,
Bedlam.
Whether it's Bedlam or whatever, you're going to see some hankies that are going to be dropped that maybe not have been dropped in the past.
You just made a statement, Porter, that once you're in at the SEC and they don't treat you any differently. And now you're telling me that they're going to be fixing games to make sure Oklahoma and Texas don't win?
I'm talking about your other scenario of them staying in the Big 12.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
I don't see
Porter,
the Big 12.
We need to move on. Anything else?
All right. Sorry to take up too much of your time.
That's fine. That's not your issue.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Porter. As long as I keep folks on the line, I hate when callers tell me that they apologize for staying on the line for so long. I keep you on the line. But just at some point, some people, carry on a point, and I just figure, you've been on for a long time and we've got people waiting. So we're going to cut in line to a certain extent because I did promise our guy, Wes, Florida State guy, would be able to jump on here and talk some Florida State football in light of Florida State, of course, performing tonight in Louisville and coming away with a big 35-31 win. Hey, Wes, how you doing?
Good, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. So give us your take on 35-31 tonight.
Well, I'll share with the sentiments of Jason, and that game aged me. That felt like a whole season in one game. Each quarter was something different. I saw some things like Jason that I really liked. I saw some things that I was hoping would improve from the first two games that just clearly have not. I think the secondary. I missed the first part of what Jason you were talking about, so I didn't hear everything. I think the secondary is super scary, and I think we've been lucky that LSU and Louisville have not either one of them completely capitalized on how bad it looks, at least to me. But I think one of the big storylines of this game that worries me going forward, as exciting as 3-0 is just all the injuries tonight, really on both sides. But man, Florida State lost some major players tonight. We didn't have Lovett coming into the game, but losing Jared Verse was huge. Obviously, Jordan Travis was huge. Losing our right guard. I'm hoping we get some good reports this next week, but I think after the last couple of years, and especially last year, having all of our games but the Wake game that we lost by less than one score, it was difficult to just continue, not quite as bad as maybe a Nebraska fan with Scott Frost and all of those situations, but it was definitely getting, I've seen this before. And that's exactly what it felt like when Fitzgerald missed that field goal there at the end. It's like, I've seen this song and dance before. Here we go. But luckily defense held tough and made that interception at the end. And, not to repeat all what you guys were talking about, but I think you got to give the game ball to Johnny Wilson. I mean, it's been a while since you saw a receiver just completely take over a game like that. But I mean, to the point where at the end Louisville couldn't do anything but just pull him down just to keep him from getting the ball.
No doubt, Wes. Do you have concerns about the defense? They couldn't tackle Malik Cunningham tonight.
Whew. Yeah. I'm trying to think when that was. Maybe it was the touchdown. What led to the touchdown that put them up 28-21, where he was trying to go to the left, and you think, oh, you're about to tackle him for a loss. The next thing you know, he finds a little hole to the right, and he's gone for 45 yards. Yeah, it definitely makes you nervous with some of the quarterbacks you got coming up. Hartman's obviously a baller in Wake, and some of the other guys you'll face, definitely some good quarterbacks in the ACC. So concerned about that, especially like I said earlier, concerned about the depth with some of those injuries tonight. I mean, you saw a big difference. The difference between that first three quarters against LSU when you've got Verse and Lovett and some of those guys healthy, as opposed to tonight. I mean, I felt I was kind of concerned with how easily Louisville was just pushing up the middle for 5 to 6 yards every carry whenever they wanted to.
Yeah, so it wasn't just Malik. Yeah, their two best running backs were out. So they were playing with the 3 and 4 guys, and they did some damage as well, Conley and Jordan. Despite the defense giving up yardage, I was taking notes on this game, and a lot of big pass breakups, a lot of plays on the ball by the likes of Kalen DeLoach, and of course Kevin Knowles made a big play at the end, just a tremendous interception on the sideline to seal it, and Brown had a big pass breakup, and others. So they did make some plays in the secondary that were big in stopping some drives.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say I'd say the offensive game ball goes to Johnny Wilson, but defensively, DeLoach, absolutely. There towards the end, he had several really big stops with really good angles on the sideline when some of those were plays earlier in the game. Cunningham's breaking that for an easy first down. And that second to last drive they had, DeLoach was a big part of stopping that one. And they had a big tackle there. I think it was on the third down before Knowles' interception, I believe. But yeah, those guys, they did step up in a couple situations. Absolutely. I hope though on the whole they can figure out some of those situations. Why are some of those opportunities there? I think that also one thing that you saw tonight, a little bit of improvement is, I felt like Jaden Daniels just was able to scramble to the outside whenever he wanted. And I felt like the containment for the most part, I know Malik still had some big runs. I felt like a lot of those were more off of broken plays, like undesign quarterback draws, and the defense was there. They just couldn't get them down. You didn't have a lot of those just open, no containment situations, and that was a little refreshing to see that.
Right, Wes. Florida State at 3-0. They got Boston College coming up next. Anything else you want to hit us with?
I don't think so. I appreciate you having me on. I hope that they can keep it going. Like I said, all of that aside, it is pretty exciting for the first time since 2015 to be 3-0, and first time in a while to have a realistic opportunity to be 4-0 going into October. So I think that's on the right direction. But I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks, Wes. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thanks.
All right, let's keep it moving here. The voice of college football, the real MVP's on the line. How's it going?
How are you doing?
I'm good. What do you got for us tonight?
Well, I was not impressed with either team.
Okay.
And I think Florida State's depth is a concern going future because a lot of people got hurt during the game, on both sides of the ball. And Florida State's rushing defense was alarmingly bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at their schedule. I think they'll beat Boston College. Boston College might be the worst team in the ACC. Wake Forest, I think that's an L. NC State, I think that's an L. Clemson, that's an L for sure, or most likely an L. They'll beat Georgia Tech. Syracuse looked better against Louisville than Florida State did against Louisville, so for currently that's an L. They'll probably beat Louisiana, but Louisiana is a good group in 5 team, so we'll give Florida State the win. And then they play Florida, that'll probably be an L. So it's possible they only win 2 games the rest of the year and finish it off at 6-6. Or win the next, or 3 wins and be 7-5. I think 6-6, 7-5 is currently the state of Florida State.
Okay. I can't disagree with that. I am a little bit more optimistic about their performance tonight and see it a little bit better than you do. But your criticisms are valid. They couldn't stop the 2 running backs who are the 3rd and 4th string running backs. And Malik Cunningham could do whatever he wanted. And I understand he's a tremendous athlete, and I understand that he does that on occasion to anybody he plays, but he couldn't get tackled by anybody. Nobody could tackle him. And it wasn't all just him running in the open field where it's extremely difficult to tackle somebody of his capability, but he's like back in the pocket dodging guys, and just nobody could tackle. They couldn't tackle running backs. It just, the defensive rush performance was pretty bad. And against the pass, though, they were pretty good in the secondary and the underneath coverage, breaking up passes, making plays on the ball. They need Jordan Travis. Tate Rodemaker, I give him a lot of credit for playing as well as he did. First time he's played in crunch time, and he generally delivered. He made a couple bad mistakes, but he delivered in the end. So, like I said, for a team that's addressing issues, you'd rather address those issues and win the games than address the issues while you're losing games, because it builds confidence and you can continue just to get better and address issues. That's where they're at.
Yeah, and there was some positive things to take away from Florida State. Even with all the injuries, they came out with a win, a scrappy win. Number 14 for Florida State, that wide receiver.
Yes.
He was the most dominant player out there on the field.
John Wilson. Yep.
Yeah, he was a complete beast. So that is a positive. He is a good player.
He transferred from the Pac-12, no less.
Hey, he's a good player. You got to call out good players when they're out there balling like that. He had, 7 catches, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's a good stat line regardless of who you're playing. But I think maybe the Florida State, it's been a while since they've been 3-0, and I understand that they should have their chest out. They should be hyped and excited. But I think they should also, tone it back. I don't think 9-3, 10-2 is realistic at this current moment.
Yeah, I don't think they're playing like a 9-3 or 10-2 team, but I do think teams change throughout the year, and they have an opportunity. Again, they're winning the games while they're improving. So if they continue to improve, they can get better. And yeah, they could be 1-2 right now easily, but they're not. They found a way to win those 2 games. And they clearly were the better team on that night against LSU. They should have won that game. They almost blew it, but they should have won that game. Now, this game was a toss-up, but they missed 2 field goals. If they're going to be playing these kind of games, they better get their field goal kicker straight, because he missed 2 makeable field goals. So they can't have that as well.
Well, I don't know how much we currently know about LSU, because the only games they've played is against Florida State and Southern. So it could be possible that LSU's just a bad football team.
Yeah, they're not that bad. They have too much talent to be bad.
Okay.
They're not bad.
Dysfunctional. They'll be a dysfunctional team.
Yeah, maybe that.
I think they're pretty talented, but I think they're going to lose a lot of games that they
Extremely
shouldn't have
talented.
to because of that
Probably.
dysfunction.
Yeah, but Florida State beat a very talented roster.
Oh, you got to give them credit for that. I mean, that was a good win.
LSU is a top 6 or 7 team in the country in terms of talent.
Yeah, but we don't play the games on paper. We play the games on the gridiron, Mark. So, and that's what counts.
But the games on paper do generally translate to the field.
How'd that work out for Texas A&M?
Yeah, I didn't say it was a perfect formula, but I said it generally translates.
Oh, and Mark, this was a kind of a disappointing result for me because, if Kentucky does go 11-1, I kind of want our strength of schedule to be higher, and if Louisville keeps losing football games like this, it's gonna really hurt us in the long run.
Yeah, you would think. Yeah, you would think that maybe Louisville could be 3-0 right now instead of 1-2, but that's what it is.
Yeah, do you think Louisville makes a bowl game?
I'd have to really dissect their schedule, but they still have NC State and Clemson. They've lost 2. That gets them to 4 losses. I don't know who they play in the other division. They got to play Kentucky. That gets them to 5. Maybe not. I'm saying right now that probably not.
Okay, let me pull it. They play Boston College, Virginia, South Florida, Pittsburgh, Wake, James Madison, and Clemson, NC State, Kentucky.
5 more losses, 5-7. No, they're done. Satterfield's on the hot seat, or maybe he's gone.
Ooh, interesting. I heard Jeff Brom's name. He's from Louisville. I believe he was an alumnus there. Any chance Jeff Brom gets the job?
Quarterback at Louisville. Yeah, that's pretty much a lateral move, right? If you have no ties to either university, Purdue, Louisville, which one's a better job? It's the same job. It just depends on how you evaluate the university and what they're going to do for you and how much money they're going to pay you and where you want to live. But for him, that's his alma mater. So that's a possibility.
Okay, and I'm looking for a Marshall-size upset this week.
Yeah.
The game I'm looking forward to where I think it would surprise people is Texas Tech at NC State.
I like that one. Yeah.
Do you think there's any other games that could be like that, or?
Well, to your point, we had 4 of them last week. We had 4 at least 17-point underdogs win. That's crazy. So you got to think we're going to get at least 1. We usually get 1, not 4.
Yeah, it should have been 5 with Texas as well.
Yeah, good point. Should have been, Texas. Oh my goodness. It'll be interesting if we're looking back on that game and saying, yeah, that was the beginning of Texas having a great season, them almost beating one of the 3 best teams in the country. Or we're going to look back on it and say they drained themselves and gave it all they had, and then they went back to being Texas and they went 6-6. Where are we going to go for another one? Well, Oklahoma, Nebraska. That would be my game.
Okay. That would be interesting. I mean, if that does happen, do you think that would say a lot about Scott Frost?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think I'll ask you, Mark, is, you've brought up fast food in the last 2 live streams. Is this going to be a continuing trend? We're going to have some fast food discussion per show?
I brought it up, or Corey brought it up?
Well, it was brought up. How about that? Fast food was brought up.
I don't know who else brought it. I don't remember the other one.
Well, on this very show, you guys were talking about Chipotle.
Yes. Okay. So Chipotle, just because I've noticed that people don't know how to pronounce Chipotle, and Jason did, and that's at least how I pronounce it, and I believe is the correct pronunciation. So we didn't really talk about the food, but yeah, Corey and I got into it pretty deep last night.
Yeah, I know. I was there watching it.
You know, we can make that a sideline. You know what? The real MVP, I don't know why I'm telling you this specifically, because I'm going to be telling everyone this, and certainly we're not having a private conversation here, but I'm going to do my damnedest to bring on people here who criticize the top 25 that actually make sense. Like, I'm going to berate them, make fun of them so much, and challenge them to talk to me directly, because they can say all they want about it's moronic, it's stupid, it makes no sense, and whatever. And I'm just going to leave comments consistently. And I may even produce a video and just say, and I'm going to name all the people, Jimmy Joe and Sally Sue and all the people. And these are their handles and what they had to say. Now, don't be a coward. Come on, let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. Call the call-in show. Those are the people I want to hear from.
Well, I disagreed with you with your top 25.
I have no issue with people disagreeing, but the people that just say you're an idiot and then move on and have no logical debate or conversation piece, they just say it's stupid and then they keep moving on.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people, and I didn't get it at first either, understand the process that occurs when making the list. I think that's probably the biggest hurdle, because it's so different than every other poll out there. But under your metrics, Alabama should be behind Kansas State. So,
well, if somebody out there can build a spread, if anybody is a whiz at building spreadsheets that kind of, I got to color code this, and because this gets very difficult to do and it gets kind of annoying, even though it's a labor of love, but it's a little annoying because I'm just kind of doing it by hand, trying to figure out, okay, how does that schedule compare to that schedule? And it's not a big deal if you're comparing 2 teams or 4 teams, but 130 teams, it gets a bit, the more games that are played. And I will admit that I've tripped up at times and been like, yeah, I shouldn't have ranked them quite there. The more complicated it gets. So I need some kind of like spreadsheet to put a formula in that'll kind of do the work a little bit for me. But yeah, so it'll be interesting again this week. And a buddy said to me today, I saw that you had Ohio State at number 18. Now what's going to happen when they beat Toledo? And I said, they'll probably drop. He's like, drop? And I said, yeah, they will probably drop, because there are going to be teams under them that are going to have more impressive wins and are going to surpass them. Ohio State may not even be ranked after they win this next game.
I don't think Alabama should be ranked in 2 weeks' time, because their 2 wins are going to be against UL Monroe and Vanderbilt.
Maybe they won't be.
And they would be 3-1, and their only game where we're confident the opponent is good is Texas. They would have won by 1 point when they got outplayed.
Yes. So a lot of that's going to depend on how Texas does the next 2 weeks. I don't know that they play anyone, Texas, San Antonio, and then they will be playing their Big 12 opener. I don't know who that is, how good that team is. So what people aren't going to understand is that Alabama in 2 weeks may not be ranked, and they might be 4-0, and they'll be like, how can you drop from number 5 and win games? And because they don't understand it. There's tons of teams below them that are winning against better teams.
Texas plays at Texas Tech, by the way.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly losable.
Yeah, and we got to give respect to all the games played today. A huge upset victory, I would call it, is Wyoming beating Air Force. I feel bad for the Service Academy for losing, those obviously great people in the Service Academy. Never like seeing any of them lose, but man, a lot of people had Air Force, including myself, going to a New Year's Six bowl game. Is it basically the Sun Belts now for the taking to go to that New Year's Six bowl game spot?
Cincinnati's still, they're in prime position.
You don't think the Sun Belt is with Marshall, App State, Georgia Southern? And those going to be 3 good football teams because they're out of conference wins all season, and if one of them can beat the other 2, you got to imagine they'll be ranked solidly.
Sure. But I don't know that they're not going to. Yeah, I'm not discounting them, but I'm just raising other possibilities, and I still think Cincinnati's one of them. I saw them play Arkansas, and they're still really, really good.
Oh, yeah. Cincinnati, I believe, is a great football team. I'm just not sure how good the American is this year with Houston losing to Texas Tech and who was the other team? UCF losing to Louisville at home.
Yeah.
I think the Memphis getting destroyed by Mississippi State. I think the American Conference has taken quite a hit. They might be the 8th best conference overall.
8th.
Yeah, Sun Belt 6th, Mountain West 7th, AAC 8th.
My laptop's about to die. So it is interesting to see how strong the Sun Belt is at the top now. So
yeah, it was an unexpected development for this year and a good one to see a different. I like seeing different teams and uniqueness in college football, and it's good to see the Sun Belt rise up.
Sun Belt. So we have yet to see how good Coastal Carolina is, but obviously they've been one of the major players the last couple of years. Georgia Southern has that win, as you mentioned, against Nebraska, although
still a Power 5 team.
Yeah, it's a Power 5 win. They were a big underdog. Marshall beat Notre Dame. App State beat Texas A&M. Old Dominion beat Virginia Tech. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Georgia State looked good against South Carolina for a bit as well.
Yeah, North Carolina. Yep. And Georgia State against they played both of them, didn't they? Yes, they did. They just lost to North Carolina by a touchdown last week. They played both of them, and they hung in the game against South Carolina. They're 0-2, but they've played 2 pretty decent Power 5 teams.
That's a pretty good division, top to bottom.
It really is.
I mean, that might be better than some other most other divisions out there, top to bottom.
That might be better than the Pac-12 North.
My goodness, Mark, I don't know. I'm
going to have our Pac-12 folks. They're going to be mad at me after making that comment.
Yeah, wow. I know. So if one of them even go 11-1, 10-2, you think they could make the New Year's Six bowl game if Cincinnati win 10-2?
Sure.
I mean,
App State runs the table the rest of the way, and their one loss is a 2-pointer against North Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah, I know College Game Day is going to be there this week in Boone, North Carolina, to see Troy versus Appalachian State. Do you have any angle on that game, Mark?
I've got no angle on it whatsoever. I don't know how good Troy is. We have a pretty good feel on how good App State is. Although it's very odd that App State plays that kind of game against North Carolina. It's one of the biggest scoring fests that we've ever seen. And then they go to Texas A&M and they practically shut down their offense, and they play a very conservative offense themselves and win a completely different game the next week.
Well, that's good coaching, Mark.
Yeah, it is. They adjusted their style of play. Absolutely. It's almost like Bill Belichick comes out with a different team every week.
That's a high praise, Mark. Troy, they lost at Ole Miss 28-10, and they beat Alabama A&M 38-17.
Yeah.
So that's respectable against a good SEC team. Only an 18-point loss.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, they were in the game.
Yeah, exactly. For your top 25, that makes sense next week. Are you expecting more teams to rise or more teams to fall? If that makes sense.
I have no idea.
because I see a lot of games where there's a lot of really good teams playing weak opponents. So I figured they would all fall, but I just don't see anybody having a clear advantage because it's not like half play bad teams, half play good teams. A lot of people are taking this week off, it seems like.
Oh, yeah. The SEC's all playing, most of them are playing their last, well, not their last because they'll have another one in November, but their next really bad team.
Yeah, and the final thing I guess I'll say is the Marcus Freeman talk earlier. I know people are saying Marcus Freeman's the worst coach in the history of coaches. He can't win a game, which is, that's literally true, I guess. He can't win a game currently, but he'll be fine. Every coach has their own unique set of challenges when starting being a head coach for any football program. It'll take some time. There will be some growing pains along the way. They should beat Cal this week, and they'll get on the right track.
I knew that somebody from the Pac-12 would get after me on this. Connor Johnson, Oregon State fan, says, Mark, quote, the Sun Belt East is better than the Pac-12 North, end quote. I did not say that. I just was weighing it in my mind. Yes, it's so funny because a couple weeks ago, I was making the statements over and over and over. Who anointed Marcus Freeman as the Messiah, the Savior? Like he hasn't done anything yet. And I'm hearing from all these Notre Dame people, of course, but even non-Notre Dame people that this guy's just the greatest. And he's so much better than Brian Kelly. And, that he walks on water. And now a couple weeks later that he's the worst coach in history. Neither one's true.
Well, yes, I agree with that 100%. But you always challenge people to call into your show and talk about the top 25 that doesn't make sense or disagrees. Maybe you should make an appearance on the Pac-12 show and explain why the Sun Belt East might be better than the Pac-12 North.
Yeah, I would take
that would be a heck of a title for a video. Sun Belt East better than Pac-12 North ?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see a little bit more football, maybe. But right now, yeah, they've beaten Texas A&M. Who is it? Notre Dame and somebody else.
Yeah, all the Nebraska.
Nebraska. And they almost beat North Carolina.
And Georgia State looked good against their two opponents that they lost to.
Yeah. Yeah. So. I don't know if I would choose the Pac-12 North or the Pac-12 South. That's a tough call.
Oh, so you're saying the Sun Belt East is just better than the entire Pac-12. Is that what I'm getting?
Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona. I'm not going to take it to that degree, but I don't know. We'll see if they've got any more Power 5 games. Somebody's got to have somebody in there.
Right. It'd be a heck of a conversation for Wednesday night at 10:30.
So I knew this was coming too. LBC Trojan is saying, Mark, who is the Big Ten West beat? Yeah, the Big Ten West had a bad week last week. Yeah. But
yeah, I'm reading your chat as we're doing this, and I'm seeing people comment that I'm poking fun at the Pac-12. I haven't said anything bad about the Pac-12.
Yes,
I've just been asking questions.
I've been the one. But let's also understand that while I tend to evaluate just based on what's happened this season, the Pac-12 has been atrocious and been the worst conference for quite a long time. So there has to be some thought given to. I'm not going to overreact out of nowhere and just say because Northwestern, Wisconsin, and Nebraska lost games this week, and Iowa they went. Well, they didn't go 0-4. I'm taking those 4 teams lost in the Big Ten West. That suddenly the Big Ten's awful because of 1 week of play. Nebraska's bad, but the Pac-12 has been awful. It appears to be improved. I don't know to what degree, but it's not embarrassingly bad. It's still probably the worst conference, probably, but we're going to see a lot more this week. They've got 4 Power 5 games this week. They're playing Michigan State, Minnesota, BYU, Notre Dame, USC plays Fresno State. That's a quality group of 5 team. Yes, I may be producing a video next week to say the Pac-12 is now challenging the SEC as the best conference.
Maybe. And there is one game I see that the Sun Belt East is playing in a Power 5 opponent. Old Dominion is going on the road to take on the other team in the state of Virginia.
Oh, yes.
They're going to play Virginia.
Okay.
And if they win, they will have a claim as the best team in Virginia. I don't know if they're from Virginia, but
Old Dominion, I believe, is they're either in Virginia or North Carolina. I think they're in North Carolina. No, I think they are in Virginia. We'll have to look that up. I believe they are in Virginia. Yeah, I know I'm riling up some Pac-12 people, and I've been on here in the past supporting and defending the Pac-12 because it's been trashed by everybody else on the planet. And of course, I bring everyone back to, I tend to just, people mostly overreact. And I just kind of tend to bring the counterpoints to bring them slightly back. And that's what I've done with the Pac-12 situation. So I'm not going to fall in love with the Pac-12 because they won a couple football games. They're still 1-5 against the Power 5 this year.
Okay. And so I just want to make this clear. If Old Dominion goes on the road and beats Virginia, will the Sun Belt East have a claim to be better than at least one Pac-12 division?
Maybe we should be comparing the Sun Belt to the ACC at that point. I don't know.
We can do that as well.
Yeah.
How about we just compare them to both? Would the Sun Belt East be the better than both conferences?
Realistically, no. But based on those results, it can be argued.
That's all we need. That's all we need is a good argument in college football. Well, that's all I probably got. I probably taken up too much of your time. Hit the like and subscribe button. Congrats to Florida State. Congrats to Wyoming. Good luck to everybody's team who's not named Youngstown State.
All right, Darrell. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Good luck to those Pac-12 fans later that are probably going to call in.
Exactly. They're going to be all over me. All right, Hunter. I apologize, Brandon. I apologize. We're going to let Logan cut in line here. He's got some great Florida State take here, and it's good to see Logan here. Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day, of course, every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right here at the Voice of College Football. Man, that was fun to watch.
What a time to be alive if you're a Florida State fan. Sorry, Mark, I didn't give you any heads up that I'd pop in here, but I saw that you were live. Yeah, I saw that you're alive, and man, what a game for Florida State overall, going all through the circumstances of guys being down like that. You lose your starting quarterback with Jordan Travis, and then you got to find some answers with Jared Verse being out for the game too. Both guys will have to see how limited they'll be and the severity of those injuries, but a big time win there from Florida State. And I think you've seen that progress, Mark. We've talked about it on the show on Wednesday nights of how Mike Norvell has worked with this locker room, and they could have easily put their heads down, and definitely at halftime they could have kind of given up on this, and they were going to have to trot out their backup quarterback with Tate Rodemaker, who hasn't had the most perfect nor really average kind of start to his career at Florida State. They could have put their heads down, and Tate Rodemaker comes in and has a slow start, but ends up finding a rhythm there and getting a little bit more relaxed in game, Mark. And that was it made it a lot of fun to watch. Absolutely. If you're just a college football fan, just seeing him and the way that they were driving down the field. I know there's some people in here that aren't Florida State fans. A guy like Tate Rodemaker, highly talked about in practice, but when it goes into games, it's like a deer in headlights. So a big game from him was definitely shocking to a lot of Florida State fans this evening.
Yeah, so I'll make a big picture comment, then we can dive into like specific units and break it down here. That I think it's a tremendous mark of a team that's trying to find itself and find its identity, that it can win with all that adversity. They lose their leader. So Jordan Travis is the leader, and he's also the playmaker. The offense is on his shoulders. They lose him. And you've been concerned about the backup quarterback position the entire offseason. And Tate Rodemaker gets the call. He's been shaky in garbage time, let alone he's on the road, ACC game, good opponent, and the game's on the line. He throws a bad pick in the red zone. You know, he looks, I don't want to call him shaky. It was just a few throws early, and then it seemed like they really did a nice job, Mike Norvell, of calling plays that he could execute, throws he could execute. Obviously, they supported him with a tremendous running attack out of the backs, and it worked.
I think that's what exactly, Mark, you're talking about. Going into halftime, I think Mike, talked with Tate and said, we're going to build something around you as much as we can, and had to talk with that running back room. They were going to have to step up because it kind of had a little bit of a slower start. Treshaun Ward being that feature back, it felt like, and then you saw Trey Benson, who had a slow start to this game. Something clicked there for them, and obviously had Lawrence Toafili's touchdown off to the right side, but really it was the big time runs from Trey Benson and Treshaun Ward there, and they had to play a big time presence. But you're right, they definitely tried to build something behind Rodemaker, what fit him the best, and a lot of RPO stuff that they practice all the time and practice days. We see Tate Rodemaker make these throws. He's always going to have an arm down the field, and sure enough, he connects with Johnny Wilson, 69 yards down the field, a great number too, just to put it out there, but 69 yards down the field to put Florida State in scoring position. And it's now a coming out party for Johnny Wilson. And we've seen him do these acrobatic plays, these one-on-one catches for touchdowns. This one, in fact, being over former FSU defensive back Jarvis Brownlee, which now is just photographed and being shared all across social media. Poor guy. But Johnny Wilson is Johnny Wilson. When you're 6'7" at that size, you should be able to come down those plays, and Tate Rodemaker put it right where his wide receiver could go and grab it. And you got to give a shout out there for Rodemaker staying in. He could have also given up on himself too, but he stayed looking down the field as much as he could. He's not as elusive, like you said, Mark, as J-Trav. I mean, J-Trav is one of the most elusive quarterbacks in the ACC, if not in the country. He can avoid and get out of those pressures. Tate Rodemaker can do that, but for some of the plays that he was making, keeping his eyes downfield, pulling up in the pocket, and making gains and getting first downs, allowing a drive and building rhythm with his running backs, it was an impressive night from a backup quarterback that isn't very, let's be honest, not very liked by this fan base, but man, did he get some respect from FSU fans in Garnet and Gold this evening.
Yeah, and on one of the touchdown drives, he actually broke contain. He beat somebody to the corner, and then he outraised. He ran it further than I thought he was going to run it. He outran some defenders to the sideline and picked up 20, 25 yards on a play. We also, on a down note, speaking of injuries, where we're going to have to find out more about Jordan Travis. Again, Jared Verse left sometime, second quarter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, early in that game. Yeah.
Tatum Bethune at one point
went out. Yep. I think he had a stinger there on that shoulder, something that has kind of he's been dealing with throughout the season, but he came back in luckily because that would have been a major loss for a guy going against Malik Cunningham. That would have sucked.
Absolutely. And then we saw Robert Scott on the field late in the game.
Yep, Robert Scott, Florida State's left tackle, who, a true starter, and there's a lot of praise for him. And then also Malcolm Ray, Florida State's defensive tackle, going down there. Seemed like an arm, maybe wrist type situation. A lot of starters going out in this game, and that just it's very bittersweet. Yeah, you get the win, and it's huge for Florida State. Mike Norvell ends that bad streak against Satterfield going against the Cardinals of how many losses he's had ends that. But you get the win, but you also have the loss of these injuries, and you hope that they're not extensive. Definitely going to Jordan Travis and Jared Verse, two guys, your best players on both sides of the ball. But then on the positive side, you take away, Florida State, we're not used, at least covering them the last couple of years. You're not used to seeing them being able to, I didn't say it on our instant reaction either. I won't say it on here either, but they dropped some certain things tonight, and it was much needed. It was much needed from a team like that.
So the downside, besides the injuries, and we touched upon all the good points. I'll make one more point about on the positive checklist is I saw a lot of big pass breakups, like on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4. Kalen DeLoach broke on the ball a couple times, and broke up some big 3rd down plays. Of course, the great catch by Kevin Knowles to seal it. That was a tremendous catch along the sideline for the pick there. So the secondary, sure, they gave up some plays. You're going to, but they seem to play well.
Mm-hmm, they did, and some big time plays there, and it was Scott Satterfield was really relying on Malik Cunningham to make some of these throws, and his wide receivers, 3rd and 2, they try to go for a pass play that gets broken up, and that just goes to some of the linebackers being in great coverage along with the defensive backs. But this team, the secondary was having to work all throughout the night. I think that third quarter and in the fourth, definitely early in the fourth, the secondary was really locking down those wide receivers for the situation that they were in, with Florida State not finding a lot of pressure. At some points, it looked like Derek McLendon was completely exhausted, and Pat Payton too, who had to jump in there and play. That defensive line was starting to get worn out, and they weren't getting any pressure on Malik Cunningham, and that only allows Malik Cunningham to stay back there, and that only allows a wide receiver to run wherever the heck he wants to go and open up shots down the field. And the secondary, I thought, played really well. I wish we could see film on that. We'll look tomorrow, but you're right. Yeah, the secondary had to come in and play here to seal off this game for FSU. There's definitely some question marks, things that need to be fixed, Mark, on the defensive side of the ball. I thought the linebacker play was 50-50 at times. I thought that had a good chance of being better. I'm still very high on how Kalen DeLoach is playing, but the defense they've got to find a way to play better. It felt a lot like that LSU last drive. Just inconsistencies, man. I understand Malik Cunningham is talented. That's a dual threat quarterback, and I thought tonight he looked good for majority of the game and the passing, but still, you got to find pressure on the quarterback, and it seems like you can't just fully rely on Jared Verse to do everything for you, and that's something that we're starting to kind of learn now that we're finally in a third game now. We finally get to kind of get a good feeling of how this defense and offense is going to look throughout the rest of the season. We're starting to see the missing piece of Keir Thomas on the other side of Jermaine Johnson, I feel like, and it's starting to become apparent.
Yeah, so that was going to be my big negative against this team tonight. Was I know Malik Cunningham is extremely talented. I know that he makes plays, but he's not running for 130 yards every week. They had all sorts of problems trying to contain him, and yeah, he's super tough in the open field, yes. But he was dodging guys in traffic way too much. And again, those are tough solo tackles to make. But just, again, he's not doing that every week against everybody. That was, that needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, no, that definitely needs to be cleaned up. And, Adam Fuller has just a interesting kind of respect here in Tallahassee. Some people really like him, some people don't like him. And it always just doesn't go how the defense plays in every game, but still, it's just those kind of things have got to be cleaned up. And I thought too, and Florida State's interior there, that was a disappointment to me. I mean, I'm expecting more out of Robert Cooper. I felt like, man, can he play 3 straight downs at some times? And I was expecting more out of Jared Jackson tonight too. Florida State ended up starting with Malcolm Ray alongside Robert Cooper tonight. I thought Louisville was able to take advantage of early on in that rushing game and score too. That interior defensive line without Fabian Lovett, and you got to hope Florida State brings him back, is able to have him back after the injury against LSU. It goes to show losing Fabian Lovett, he is the key he's the key part in that interior defensive line. I understand Robert Cooper's their veteran, but Fabian Lovett's the most talented guy in that room, and missing him tonight hurt Florida State overall in that defense.
Yeah, so he missed the entire game, and also the other knock here against the rush defense was not just Malik Cunningham, but Louisville without their two top running backs were playing with their 3 and 4 guys, Conley and Jordan, and they had a pretty nice nights and were grinding out yardage.
Yeah, no, they did pretty well. Obviously, Malik Cunningham over 120 yards, Jordan 91, Cooley scoring there with a touchdown, only 34 yards, but still able to go up there through the middle and score a touchdown. There's just some things on the defensive side that Florida State's going to have to fix. Mike Norvell after the game talking to the media saying there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to get some treatment tomorrow and through Sunday. Just a lot of injuries and got guys dinged up, and that's understandable to continue to try fighting in games. That's just what's going to happen if you're going to try to fight in games. If you're going to try to be lackadaisical and just let a team go down the field on you, or you're just not going to play pressure there on offense to try to get down the field on your own part, then you're just not going to get hurt. These guys played hard, they played physical, and they put themselves in positions to win, and that's just what's going to happen. You're going to have another physical game. And so Florida State luckily had a game on Friday night. They're going to get an extra day to rest, and they'll face a Boston College team next week, Mark, which doesn't seem to be so bueno. So if you're looking to go trot out Tate Rodemaker and hopefully rest Jordan Travis a little bit more, then you feel comfortable, I think, after seeing the performance tonight.
Yeah, a lot of people thought Boston College was going to be a factor, but they lost to Virginia Tech by 3 scores, lost to Rutgers. They might be the worst team in the Big Ten. Not looking good for them early on. Well, we won't ask you to, because you can imagine Jason was on right after the game, and Jason gave us the full schedule breakdown as he loves to do. Well, if they do then they're going to be 6-2 when they did. So we got all those scenarios played out.
Yep. I like to keep it week by week as much as I can. I can't look ahead too far. The Boston College one I can look ahead to as much, just because, like you said, they doesn't seem like their most impressive team, but you are looking at a potential 4-0 team going into that Wake Forest game, which is at home.
Yeah.
You're looking at a potential college game day type of situation if Wake Forest stays and Sam Hartman's doing his thing, now fully cleared. You're looking at maybe a college game day or definitely a primetime game inside Doak Campbell, but a 4-0 start for Mike Norvell. You're only 2 wins away from bowl game play. A whole different kind of start for Florida State fans.
Yeah.
Or even people covering the team. It's a different world. It's a little bit different than 2-3 last 4 years or so. It's a fun team to cover, definitely when they're fighting like this. It's a fun coach to cover too, just to see the practices and how hard they really do work. I mean, this team works their tails off in practice. I wish we could share everything that they do, but they work their tails off in practice, and they deserve a win like this. And this is a ranked team. I'm expecting them to be ranked after this weekend. Mark, I don't know about you, but I would expect them for a team to go up like this and be without your starting quarterback for the second half of the game and be without Jared Verse like this. I'm expecting Florida State to be in that top 25 on Sunday, Monday.
Well, Logan, they will most likely, almost assuredly, be ranked in the rankings that count.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say.
And the last thing I'll hit you with, unless you have anything, I'll hit you with 2 things before we go big picture to end it. And obviously you've got the floor if you got any other points to make. This still being a team that's trying to work through some things, we can expect some more nail biters, and they may need a kick. So Fitzgerald misses 2. The last one was one of those deals where you can't ice the game, but you can at least put yourself in a position where they have to score a touchdown to force overtime. So it's a pretty big kick. It's a makeable kick. I don't know what the distance was. It wasn't that.
It was short, 36 and 37.
So
yeah, exactly. That's the reaction I had while watching that. That's just something he's got the talent. We've seen him make these before. Way farther than that. It's just a mental thing.
Yeah.
With him, and I don't know what you could do really to fix that. We saw a little bit with Ricky Aguayo, really talented kicker, and definitely coming from that family heritage of the Aguayos. But things started happening mentally with them, and I think that's what's going on with Fitzgerald. You also saw Mastromano have a shank punt there for like 20-something yards, 24 yards. Special teams, kickers not helping at all, and it doesn't help too on positions on the field. You're putting bad field position on both your offense or defense, just whichever way you're doing, either kicking or punting. Put yourself in a really bad position. That's something Mike Norvell absolutely hates. And so he's going to have to find a fix. That's one of the biggest things with that defense, along with special teams. They're going to have to go back this weekend while they have a little bit of extra time and say, hey, do we need to open up a competition here in that kicking room? Is that something that, is there anybody that can compete? There's a walk-on kicker there on the roster, but there's got to be something done here. You just can't stay stagnant, and I don't think Mike Norvell will. He understands that this is something that is desperately needed to fix. They're just putting themselves in really bad positions, not helping themselves out.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll hit you with is what I came on here saying, because I saw a number of negative comments. Louisville's not that good. Malik Cunningham was running them all over the place. That was a shaky win. Okay, there's something about having a team that hasn't had success, that has talent. You've got pieces to work with. You're working and addressing issues. If you can win games like they've won against LSU and Louisville, and you can win while you're addressing needs, and you're not going to be, if Norvell knows what he's doing and this team can stay healthy, now injuries aside, that can derail anybody. This isn't necessarily the same team that it's going to be in November. And if you can win while you're getting better, it's huge. It's just, their confidence has to be growing a ton with these, LSU is no joke. I understand they're not vintage LSU, but they've got a top 10 talent roster in the nation. They win that game and they outplayed them. They go on the road. Louisville may not be great, but it's a conference game. It's on the road. They weren't winning these games last year. And the confidence grows, and then you can address the issues while you're building your confidence.
Yep. I'm right there with you. They, like you said, they don't usually go up and win these games. That's why I tweeted earlier. That was one of the most impressive games I've seen them win in years. And I think all the fan base agrees. Usually Florida State will go up there and lose a game like that to Louisville on a Friday night. It's just storyline perfect for Florida State to blow a game like that.
Yeah. When the guy who does everything for you on offense is out of the game.
Yeah. That ran that offense. I mean, absolutely. You build your whole entire scheme out of Jordan Travis in that number 13 jersey. And then you throw in Tate Rodemaker, who I can't stress enough. I know there's a lot of FSU fans on here, along with, some other fans across the country listening to you live tonight. Tate Rodemaker is a backup quarterback that isn't like some other backup quarterback. You see at Texas A&M, they're going to give their backup quarterback a shot. That's something that Florida State fans were extremely scared about going into this offseason. We talked about it. I've stressed enough. I was thinking about it today. I was really worried. I was about to start bringing it up again to you, Mark, that Florida State should have grabbed someone in that transfer portal or tried to as much as they could to have someone behind Jordan Travis with more experience than Tate Rodemaker. And you see a guy there that usually has deer in headlights. And that was early in the game. That was absolutely what it was like. They're also sending it to him, and Trey Benson missing a block there that nobody really realizes. And, Tate Rodemaker's just tossing it over there and it gets intercepted. Growth there, and Mike Norvell continuing to press that this game is not over. You've got to stay dialed in. And it was a winnable game from the very beginning. You had a great drive there from JT. It was just a big time win for the circumstances they went through, and so many starters being out, some for plays, some for the entire game. It's just, now I'm hoping that these injuries aren't severe to where you're looking at like a either season ending. Obviously, you don't want those, or 3 to 4 weeks, because you've got some big time games coming up after Boston College, Wake Forest, and Clemson being two of those. NC State also being in that range. Florida State's got a big October coming up soon. So that's one thing that we will hopefully get an update on Monday, Mark, and then we'll talk about it on the show on Wednesday with you.
Yeah, to your point, Texas A&M's going to the bench for their backup quarterback, and he threw 27 touchdown passes in the SEC last year. So that's a whole different deal. Now,
a whole different deal, yeah.
Totally shaky, totally untested, but, we talked about the confidence of the whole team going another level. For him, it should, he's never done anything like this. He's never thrown big-time passes with the game on the line and did what he did tonight. So
yeah, I mean, when I say he would look very out of it and deer in the headlights inside Doak Campbell Stadium alone against a smaller opponent.
Yeah.
For him to do that on the road against Louisville in a night game, I don't care how Louisville has looked this season so far. I mean, you're still fighting to keep up against Malik Cunningham and getting down the field, which Florida State's defense just couldn't handle for the most part. Tate Rodemaker had a lot of pressure on his shoulders and made some big time throws, and also was a game manager. I'll mention that too. He was a game manager, and those running backs too helped out a ton. So that, at least, we'll see. We don't have confirmation yet on the severity of Jordan Travis's injury. He was on crutches and had a boot on. He was very energetic and smiling and tweeting after the game, happy. You got to hope that it's nothing severe. Hopefully just maybe a high ankle sprain, something that he can rest for the next week and a half and get prepared for a big-time matchup against Florida State versus Wake Forest in 2 weeks. But Boston College is upcoming next weekend.
All right, folks. Jordan Travis throws 2 TDs. Tate Rodemaker throws 2. Florida State wins 35-31. They're 3-0 for the first time since 15. Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day. You got to get on over there. Check out Logan's work right there. And you've got your show Wednesday at
8. Yep.
8 o'clock. 8 Eastern, right here on YouTube. Noel Game Day. After you watch us every Wednesday at 6, right here at the Voice of College Football.
Thank
Logan,
you, Mark.
we appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of the evening.
Thanks,
see you guys. Or morning, I should say. It's 1:21. Oh, my God. I did not notice
yeah.
It's 1:21. Oh, my
Lord.
God.
All
It is
right.
done.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Mark. See ya.
All right, Hunter, we will get to you in just a second. Appreciate you hanging on, but we needed to catch Logan right there on the Florida State take. Of course, we ask everyone that you would hit the like button as well. And I got to say, before we get to Hunter's call and anybody else that wants to join us for next few minutes, that am I really believing what I'm reading in the chat concerning Michigan fans? I love you. You know that you might be the largest fan base on this channel, Michigan fans. So I appreciate you being here, even understanding my background and supporting our channel. I love you. But at the same time, is there really an argument back and forth in the chat for I don't know how long about which team, which school, which program has performed better in the playoff, Ohio State or Michigan? You understand that's a joke. Yes, Hummus Hero. It's laughable. That it's not even, how can that even be debated? It's a complete joke. So savor your Big Ten championship from last year. You may win another one this year. Then we've got a heck of a debate concerning Ohio State and Michigan. Connor Johnson says, I hate the Pac-12, even though I ranked Oregon State. Who else is ranking Oregon State number 6 in the country right now? I think it's just this kid right here. Nobody else. All right, we got Hunter on the line to talk some college football. Hunter, how are you?
Good, Mark. How are you?
Good. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, go Noles, man. Go Noles. It was a crazy game, huh?
Yeah, it was fun.
I want to bring a slightly different angle to what some of your other guys from the Florida State side bought. I think there's a lot of potential with Tate. I watched him play, even though he's like you said, and I agree that he was kind of a deer caught in the headlights, type of a situation there. But I've seen him make some throws and some decisions that I can see him developing into a decent quarterback.
Well, you saw all those good decisions tonight because we've not seen them in the past.
Yeah. And so maybe he's coming along. And I have heard that in practice he's done fairly well. So maybe, this is now him coming along. And, next week, going into that Boston College game, maybe we could see him, maybe his confidence will boost, from this game, and see him be able to step up even further, and maybe can become a reliable quarterback when he needs to play.
Yeah, well, they may need him. We shall see. Even though Jordan Travis may bounce back from this injury, we don't know the extent of it. His history is that he gets hurt, that he gets banged up. He did add some weight, so that wouldn't happen or wouldn't have the propensity to happen this year. But we shall see.
Yeah, and we haven't talked since the Alabama and Texas game. I came down with strep, so I was completely out of it Saturday.
Yeah, I bet.
So, I want to dive into that game a little bit. I'm going to make no excuses for Alabama and how we played. That's inexcusable. That's not the Bama standard. And I think the Alabama fans know that. I certainly know Nick Saban knows that. But here's the interesting kind of take that I have on this. Even though you've seen how bad Alabama played in that game, for them to show the resiliency to come back and win, even though it was by 1 point, shows you that just on Alabama's worst day, how good they can be in overcoming obstacles in games. And like I said, hats off to Texas. I mean, they had a great plan. I think Sarkisian had a great plan. Their defense is a lot better than I thought it would be. So what is your kind of take on, kind of my take there?
The bottom line is that for as critical as we can be about Alabama's performance, they couldn't get explosive passing plays in the passing game. They couldn't run the ball consistently. Their secondary got abused and picked up way too many penalties and were constantly grabbing and holding and lost. They won the game. Fair and square, they won the game. I think there's a lot of questionable calls in any game, but I don't think that they found a way to win against, we'll see if they're a good team, but we know a very talented team on the road. So we tend to measure Bama again against its standard, which it's the highest in college football. So we're kind of tough on Alabama in that way, but they did it. Now, I think Texas played better.
They were the better team that day.
Yeah, and they not only played better, they played better. And Quinn Ewers looked exceptional for the 1 quarter and 13 passes that he played, but they even played better with a backup quarterback who had a bad ankle. So that was impressive from Texas.
Yeah, and I think some of the issues that we've seen in Alabama's offense was due to scheme. I think there's a horribly called game. I mean, that's some of the worst play calling I've seen from an Alabama offensive coordinator in a while. I mean, you would have thought that he would have been able to find some way. Why didn't he just have a couple quick passes to some of the wide receivers? That way we could open up the shots downfield. Did you see a point in that game where we could have taken shots downfield, comfortably?
that game's a blur at this point. I certainly had my take on the game and produced a video, but
I didn't. I mean, I didn't see. But I mean, we could should step.
I think it's debatable as to whether Alabama has players that have shown that they can be explosive game changers in the open field and can make the kind of plays that Jamison Williams was making last year.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, we're talking about Jamison Williams. I mean, we're talking about a guy who is established coming in, and some of these guys, we got a young wide receiver.
But Alabama's always had those guys.
Yeah, that's true too. But I just thought it was due to scheme. I didn't think that game with the offensive scheme was very good. I thought we should have stuck with the run a little bit more than what they did. I thought at one point we had some momentum in the run game, and then they just kind of abandoned it. I don't know what that was due to. I mean, I don't know what Bill O'Brien was seeing that because I heard a lot of Alabama fans say the same thing. That we should have stayed with the run there when the momentum was on our side. So, but anyway, and to the comment on the real MVP, you're exactly right. If Alabama plays that bad against Arkansas, we can't beat them. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we got 2 weeks here to clean up all the things that we need to clean up. And we've seen this before with Alabama and being able to take these losses and channel them into a national championship year. I still don't think that's out of a realm of possibility with this team. I think this team has a lot of potential. JoJo Earle's coming back. And Tyler Harrell seems to be getting healthy. So we're gonna have some guys returning to the to the wide receiver room that I think is going to give us a boost in that area.
All right, Hunter. Anything else?
Yeah, one more thing.
Sure.
This Auburn Penn State game.
Yeah.
Is that your game of the week to kind of watch, or is there another game you kind of think's bigger?
Yeah, the Big Ten and the SEC don't get together enough. So yeah, that's if I could only watch one game, that would probably be it. Although I think Miami and Texas A&M obviously is attractive to a lot of people as well.
I can tell you this, and I know you know this covering the SEC. I mean, Auburn's a tough place to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that Penn State right now is the better team. But I'm not going to rule Auburn out.
No.
In this game, and I think it's very important for Brian Harsin to win this game. I think this is a game that Auburn fans expect them to win, and so, I mean, this could be the beginning of the end of Brian Harsin if he doesn't win this game Saturday.
I think Penn State is a little bit better. Even if they lose, it may not change my mind because I do think, yes, Auburn's a difficult place to play. And the two teams got together last year and they played a barn burner.
That's a classic.
Down to the wire. It was a great game.
So anyway, enjoy your day tomorrow, Mark. Watch college football. And, oh yeah. And one last quick thing.
Sure.
Who in the hell pissed off the Sun Belt?
What, in the chat?
No, I'm talking about as a conference. I mean, going out and beating Marshall,
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
I mean, that's just that's wild. That I don't think I've seen that happen. Team like that in the same week have that.
Yeah, who they beaten? Texas A&M, Notre Dame, and somebody. Well, Nebraska, but still. That was actually the biggest point spread, and they came within an eyelash of beating North Carolina.
Oh yeah, and I did have a question for you about Nebraska's hiring search.
Yeah.
I think that one of the candidates that they should consider hiring. I don't know if he has any ties to the university, but just on a straight coaching thing, I don't think at this point that the NC State's head coach would be a bad choice.
Dave Doran for Nebraska. You wonder if he would leave. I think he would. I think that's still a step up. It's just a bigger fan base. They got to be paying more money at Nebraska than they would at NC State. They just have more facilities and more resources and more everything. And any school going forward that's in the SEC and the Big Ten, unless something changes, and I don't think it's going to, is going to be able to pay their coaches more because they're just making so much more money.
Yeah, yep. and two, I think the reason that a lot of people said, the firing, the timing of the firing of Scott Frost, I think they paid him the extra money because of what he means to the university, and I think that's the only reason they chose to not wait until October 1st. I think if it was anybody else, they probably would have waited and paid him less and then send him on their way. But I think because of who he is to the university, I think that's why they went ahead and paid him the extra money.
So instead of waiting until October 1st and paying him $7.5 million, they made the decision because they like Scott Frost so much.
Yeah, I mean,
you might be right. I'm not going to say that you're wrong. It's my guess that they needed to make a decision. They couldn't let this situation just languish for another 3 weeks with a
is it worth $7 million though?
Yes. Yeah. It's for a program like that has that kind of resources and money. Yeah. Is it worth $7 million just to give it to a nice guy that you like, that you're firing and getting rid of, that you've already paid millions and millions of dollars to anyway to be a bad football coach?
Maybe I'm wrong.
We did that because we're killing recruiting. We're killing our fan base. We're having chants at the stadium. Fire Frost. Can we really go on with this for another 20 days? No. I think it was worth the $7.5 million to say, no, this is I won't use the term because it's overstated.
A dumpster fire?
Well, I wasn't going to say dumpster fire. I was going to call it a cancer in the locker room. That it's just on so many levels. I think I explained it much better in a video. Yes, it was worth the $7.5 million to spare the 3 weeks of continued controversy, wait on the program, wait on the team, lame duck coach, losing more games. No, you need to show, and recruiting is crucial right now. Less than 3 months to National Signing Day.
I think they should have fired him last year. I mean, I would have been done if I was the AD in that program. I mean, they should have last year.
Yes,
but anyway, they did what they did. Maybe I'm wrong about in my assessment of that, but I just thought that some of the maybe it's part of the reason. Maybe it's not all the reason, but maybe it is part of the reason that they went ahead and fired him instead of. Maybe that has something to do with it, or maybe not. Maybe it's just what you just said is completely plausible as well.
Yeah, I don't think they fired Scott Frost early because they think he's a nice guy and they wanted to give him more money. No, I think they're regretting the money that they've already paid him.
And I hate it for a guy like that who played for them and such a good quarterback for them. I hate it for the guy, but at any school that you should be able to coach for and do a good job at is your alma mater. I mean, any school, and I thought it was a great hire when they hired him because of what he did at UCF.
Everybody did. So. I did. I don't know. Somebody would have to show me an article or a video clip that would show me of anybody who criticized that hire because it seemed so right on so many levels.
Yeah. All right, Mark. Well, thank you for taking my call, and
thanks, Hunter.
We'll talk to you later.
I appreciate it. We've got 3 folks on the line. We'll take these 3 calls, and then we will call it a night, and we will be back here, of course, all day on Saturday. True Seminoles here, and probably fired up, I would guess.
Oh, Mark, we got away with this one right now.
Got away with it.
Yeah, man. We escaped, man. We managed to pull it out.
I see it more optimistically. I see it as having a lot of injuries and a lot of adversity and fighting through it and finding a way to win.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, of course, this Florida State of the past would lose this game. and the fact that they clawed back and won with so many of the guys, the main guys, out. Jared Verse went down. Tatum Bethune. You didn't have Fabian Lovett this game. And then Jordan Travis going down, and I mean, everyone's seen that first throw by Tate. You just thought everything was going to go downhill. Just to watch the team like rally, and Johnny Wilson just explode out of the seams, dude. It was just an awesome moment, absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun to watch, just as a college football game.
Yeah, first 3-0 start since 2015, man. It's awesome. It's great. This team has come so far in the past few years.
All right, man. Anything else you want to hit us with?
No, man. Just happy. I'm just happy, dude.
Well, appreciate you being here. Congrats on the win, and you can enjoy the rest of the college football weekend in peace, knowing your team already won.
Absolutely, man. Good night, bro.
Thanks, True Seminole. Appreciate it. All right. Maybe we're going to talk some Purdue, Syracuse, maybe with Michael Hogue. Michael, how are you?
Good, Mark, yourself?
I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was Florida State. But hey, no matter, just like it reminded me of the Ohio State Notre Dame game, a win's a win, no matter how ugly it's going to get. They should be celebrating that they're 3-0 right now.
Sure.
Down in Tallahassee. Am I right or am I wrong?
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway, the question is this. Do you see Aiden O'Connell doing a lot of dinking and dunking tomorrow and then going for the jugular to get to get Syracuse going like that? Because I don't know much I haven't seen much film about their past defense and stuff like that. Or do you think King Drew can have a good game running the ball?
Well, that Syracuse defense was good enough to hold Louisville to 7 points, and with their two starting running backs that did not play tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Syracuse must be pretty darn good. Can't get a whole lot from their Connecticut game, but they put up almost 50.
Yeah.
On the surface, I just I got to think that Purdue's the better team, but they come in a slight underdog.
Yeah, I know. Just like they was, but I don't know. Anyway, and I'm going to try to figure out. I'm going to try to lobby the Big Ten the next time they have Purdue having a Thursday night national TV audience. I'm going to try to start a petition for they deny it, because the last 2 times that's happened, Purdue's lost both times.
So your petition is going to be not to play on Thursday night.
Yes.
Okay.
Because they lost to Northwestern in 2018.
Yes.
And they lost to Penn State this year.
Yes. Michael, hopefully you're kidding, because you will be undergoing a complete colossal waste of time. I'm
just joking.
Sure.
I'm just joking about that. But no, getting back to the deal with Ohio State, Michigan, stuff like that right now. Yeah, everybody, Ohio State fans say Michigan play cupcakes. And someone still is Ohio State. But can you say Notre Dame's right now a cupcake themselves?
Well, they're not as good, apparently, based on one game, not based on the Ohio State game, but based on the Marshall game. They're apparently not as good as most of us thought they were, but Michigan fans have nothing to talk about in that concern for 2 reasons. Number one, Notre Dame is so incredibly better than anybody that Michigan's played, including the team tomorrow. So nobody can debate that. That's just ridiculous, Mm-hmm. So there's no comparison between Notre Dame and the 3 cupcakes that Michigan has played. Number one. Number two, Ohio State scheduled a Notre Dame program that could be one of the top teams in the country. Like they're scheduling Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They're not scheduling Notre Dame that's going to be off and be 7-5 in a particular year. They just have knowledge of, we're scheduling Notre Dame. So you know what I mean? So as opposed to Michigan scheduling Hawaii, Colorado State, and UConn.
Yeah, which Yeah, interesting your point. That's just like for I was talking with his friends and stuff like that. Last couple of days, like they're scheduled, Purdue scheduled Ole Miss for 2033, 2034.
Yeah.
How are you gonna know if both teams are gonna be good or they're gonna be trashing it?
Well, I think we can guess that most likely Ole Miss is going to be what they typically are, which is a pretty good team, but not great, but not horrible. They're going to be a 7-5, 8-4 kind of team, most likely. Now, they could be really down, or they could be in a 2014-15 Hugh Freeze
10-win season.
swing up to 10 wins, or what they were last year. Yep.
Yeah. Or just like with North Carolina, I think that's what 2026. I think I can't remember off the top of my head, but no, and stuff like that.
Same thing there. North Carolina is the same type program as an Ole Miss. You don't expect them to be an elite team, but they're usually good. Have plenty of NFL players on the roster, and 8-4. That's what North Carolina typically is. But they have their good seasons and down seasons.
Yep. So what game? So which game are you do need live streams tomorrow during the 12 o'clock kickoffs?
Well, Michael, if you did not catch us yesterday, I did listen to your suggestion, and I did run down my top 5 games of the week, and I went through the entire broadcast day and kind of lined up how I would and will approach the day.
Okay. All right. No, I was in the stream, but I didn't see that part and stuff like that. Last thing before I let you go, did you like the Florida State helmets last night?
Yeah, I liked it. Thought they looked different. They were nice. Sure.
Yep. Not bad. All right. It's 1:45. I'm going to get to sleep because before
I'm with you.
Noon's going to get here before you know. Thanks, Mark. Have a good one.
Thanks, Mike. All right. Last call of the night right here at the Voice of College Football. We got our guy Dustin here. Dustin, how are you? Yes, Dustin. Hello. Going once, going twice. Dustin, are you there? All right. So I guess we're going to talk about Saturday at the Voice of College Football. Of course, we've got postgame shows all over the place, whether that's Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Nebraska, Iowa, West Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma, USC, Oregon, Virginia Tech, Alabama, Miami, Notre Dame, probably missed a few, but tons of post-game shows here at the Voice of College Football. I will be posting on the community page, folks. Every day I put live schedule. I put Thursday live schedule, Friday live schedule, Saturday live schedule, and all the various live shows we're doing. And then I put the links to the channels where you can find them. That's every morning. In addition to that, of course, we're going to be here at the end of the day after the primetime game, about 11:30 Eastern, to wrap up the entire day, take your calls, do the whole deal. Also, keep in mind that I may be here during the day. If something crazy happens, I'll show up. Last week, I produced a video on the recap on the Alabama-Texas game, and also I had something to say about Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M's issues with App State, which it appears a lot of people liked that video by the response. And so I will do the same as we always do here at the Voice of College Football. A lot of instant analysis throughout the day on Saturday. I'll be watching as many games as I possibly can. And then we will wrap it all up at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here at the Voice of College Football, taking your calls. And again, post-game shows all over the place. And please lock it in there. Follow me on Twitter as well, Instagram. And what else can I sell you? If you want to sponsor the show or know of anyone who can benefit from sponsoring, please hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. And of course, this is now the time to join us on Discord. Go to Patreon, sign up there, patreon.com, search MarkRogersTV. You get the Discord link. I will send that to you as soon as I see your email come through that you joined Patreon. and you get the Discord link. You get the, I got to post it. Shoot, I forgot the Steve Merrill Under the Radar Selection of the Week. So that's going to be posted. You get my picks. You get picks from media members, the whole deal. You get to request exclusive content from me as well. So again, Discord on Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV. You should be able to find it easily there. In fact, I will get you the link as we speak. All right, the link is in the chat. Exactly, Dave. Like a dunk tank, $5. And I appreciate everybody being here. Of course, on Sunday, we will have our top 25 that actually makes sense. And this is what I'm doing. If you've noticed this in the Roger Dodger, thank you for making it a great show as well. Thank you for that. Or not a great show. Sorry. Good show. As you've all noticed, the last couple of weeks, we've done a top 25 that actually makes sense reaction live show. And my aim there is to get all the people that, and I honestly understand if somebody joins it for the first time and is completely like, this guy's clueless, what's he doing? This makes no sense. I totally get that. Totally get that. So we are here to educate and explain, but we're also here to answer and confront all the knuckleheads who call me an idiot, a moron, and everything else, and they don't understand it. They don't get it. And what's funny is that those people won't show up. So I am personally challenging everybody who's a critic of the top 25 that actually makes sense. I am going into the comments section and I'm saying, please call me. Just call me. And I may even produce a video and just call these people out and say, this person, that person, this person, that person, they had this to say, and I'm going to let them have it. So I think we'll do that. And I'm just going to personally challenge to get some tremendous debate here on the top 25 that actually made sense. I want to hear from those people that are critical of the system, not critical like the real MVP called the other day, or other people that just question, hey, Mark, you kind of screwed this up. Your number 7 team really shouldn't be that high. I totally get that. It's not a perfect system. It's not even really, in some senses, a system. But anyway, and if anybody wants to build a spreadsheet for me as this becomes more and more complicated, I will certainly take that as well. Dustin, thank you so much for that. I tried to get you on here. I don't know what happened there, but I apologize that we couldn't get you on. Appreciate everybody being here again. Join Discord, search Patreon. I dropped the link in the chat. I will do it one more time. There we go. And what a weekend we'll have. Think about this. We've got post-game shows all over the place tomorrow. Of all the teams I just mentioned, 18 post-game shows, I believe, is the count. We'll be here live tomorrow night, and I'll be posting videos throughout the day. Whatever strikes me as the big stories of the day, the big outcomes of the day in college football. Our top 25 that actually makes sense will hit the streets early on Sunday. I will do my conference rankings sometime on Sunday or Monday. And then again, if anything hits me from over the weekend, and what I'm really trying to do going into each week, because it was so successful going into week 1 where I had Utah, Florida, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Oregon, Georgia previews that did rather well, is if I can get to them, produce and post previews of the big games heading into week 4. Right here at the Voice for College Football, we appreciate it. Thank you all so much for everything that you do. And yes, Connor Johnson, we still love you despite you not quite understanding my criticism of the Pac-12. I understand you're You're repping your conference. And yes, kudos to the Pac-12 for playing competitive football this year. All right, we'll see y'all tomorrow at the Voice of College Football.